Welcome to Fundraising Leaders with Drew, where we embark on a journey to discover the heart and soul of nonprofit fundraising and decode the strategies that lead to fundraising success. I'm your host, Drew Clancy, and I am grateful to be joined today by Brant Pinvidic. Brant is a top Hollywood producer, author, and expert on creating powerful presentations. He has successfully sold nearly 50 TV shows using his 3-minute rule, which is also the title of his book on how to deliver a successful pitch. Let's jump right in with Brant. Brant, why don't you just give us a little bit of a background about how you got into the entertainment business, and then how you, when you decided to write your book, and just give us a little background.
Yeah, I was born in Canada, raised in Canada, entrepreneur in Canada. Very difficult process. The Canadian entrepreneurial system, let's just say, is not geared the way the American system is. So it was a pretty big struggle for me trying to figure out where I belong, what I was supposed to be doing. I tried a lot of stuff, then generally a failed entrepreneur across many different platforms. And then I had an idea for a TV show because I was doing some work at a bar I owned, and I just got way ahead of myself, making things and trying to do this TV thing that I wasn't involved in. But then I went to the United States with it to try to see if anybody would be interested. And sure enough, people were like, "Hey, this is a wild idea. Why don't you come down here and work for us?" And, within months, I realized, like, this is where I belong. This is where my people are. This is my natural habitat. And so I just flourished. So over the last 25 years, I produced a lot of television shows, everything from Bar Rescue to Extreme Makeover to Biggest Loser. So a lot of stuff like that, a lot of reality shows, some film, some, scripted TV. So I had a really good run. And I developed the 3-minute rule in the edit bay. That was sort of a rule that we always used. And I had no idea it could translate over to the pitching process. But it did. And then once I started working outside of television a little bit as a consultant, I just was like, I like it more. I don't love television. I don't love that. It's not as creative or glamorous or fun, or, it's not predictable. There's just a lot of things. And it was very lucrative, but that wears off pretty fast. And so I just found that I decided to write the book. The book did really, really well. And it just opened a pile of doors. So I retired from TV about 5 years ago, and I've been doing nothing but teaching, training, coaching, and just enjoying that side of the creativity and working with companies to help them sort of move to the next level.
Fantastic. One of the, early on in the book, you talk about the 3-minute rule and how obviously it was a big success for you in the TV business. But, whether you're pitching a TV show, whether you're pitching a business idea, or in our case, looking to raise money, the same principles apply. Let's talk a little bit about your 4-part framework, the 4 questions you encourage us to ask, and kind of walk us through that process.
Yeah, so if you think about what the 3-minute rule is, it's effectively your first 3 minutes, right? And there's a scientific process behind it. It's not just trying to simplify your pitch, although that's the result. It's basically everything of value about your business, product, or service. You have to convey that clearly and concisely and accurately in 3 minutes or less. And so to do that, I have a filter called the WAC method, which is sort of these 4-point structure that you put your information in that order. It allows people to understand your information in the proper construct of the way humans make decisions, right? First, we conceptualize what it is we're actually even looking at. We have to understand the concept. Then we can contextualize it as in, how does it relate to me? How would I be interested? And then we can actualize, saying, like, what are the next steps? And so the WAC method stands for WHAC, which is, what is it? How does it work? Are you sure about that? And can you do it? And so effectively, what is it and how it works? It's just what it says. Like, I just need you to explain exactly what this is. Like, that's all my brain is looking for. Now, you can go all crazy in your descriptions. You can tell me all about the size of the marketplace and what the problem is, what the pain points of your consumer. Like, you can do all that. I won't listen to you. until I understand what it is you're talking about. So while you're talking about the pain points in the size of the market, all I'm doing is trying to figure out what it is that you actually do. So from there, it's like, how does it work? Which is literally, how do you do that? This is what I do. Here's how I do it. Once you can cleanly express those two pieces, now your audience starts to look for validation, confirmation, relatability. So that's the, are you sure? Like, do you have any facts, figures, logic, reason, the process? What is it that validates that you are doing it? Why are you doing this and how it works? Like, why is that a good thing effectively, right? And then can you do it is literally like, what's the process of moving forward, or what's the probability of success, or what is the sort of next steps? And when you put it in those 4 pieces and you cut everything else out, you can cut things down to the minimum. Like I was just doing a talk at a school yesterday, and I closed a massive client that I didn't even want to get on the phone with them, because I knew that if they said yes, my life was going to be like more complicated. And it's nice. They're big, and I can't say no, the size of this company. But, this is a very, very large contract. And that my presentation to them was 9 slides and took a total of probably 6 minutes total.
Yeah.
By the time, it was like, and that was just like, because it's like, it's not difficult for me to explain what I do and how I do it and what you're going to get. There's not a lot there. Everything else is just fluff, and it's just trying to convince you. And people don't want to be convinced. They don't want to be sold. If you're trying to convince me, then I'm thinking, there's maybe something not there.
Yeah.
And like, I'll give you a good example. One of my very good friends, my partner in various business organizations, he's a very wealthy person. And he came up with something new that I had been helping him do. And they decided to go raise some money. And so out of like almost like a courtesy, he called me and one of my other partners on the weekend. It was like, effectively like, hey, we're closing this round. We're oversubscribed. Do you want in or not? Like, no big deal if you don't, but just like, let me know if you want to come in. I think it's a great idea.
Sure.
And I was already saying, yeah, of course, we'll come in. We believe in you, Brad. Like, you're our guy, right? Like, I like the idea, but I like you and I know your track record. And both my partner and I were there. But Brad, who is a very close friend of mine, just kept talking and kept explaining more reasons why it's good and where they're going. And I found myself naturally doubting this, because it almost sounded like I didn't have confidence in it, or he needed my money all of a sudden. And I know both those things aren't true. And yet, even though I know those two things are true, my natural instinct is I started to feel this a little bit, just because
Sure.
He kept selling it. And all he really needed to do was say, you guys in or not? And we would have said, yeah, we're in. And that would have been the end of it. So that's really how the WAC method helps you formulate your structure and tries to force you to maintain that simplicity, because that simplicity conveys confidence more so than even when I wrote the book. It's been an exponential return on that investment.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. So powerful, this idea of laying out the facts, what it is, how you do it, turning down the quote salesmanship, and just very effective. You also have a process that you encourage us to go through as we're putting this together, involving Post-it notes. There's a great story in the book where you essentially how you came up with the 3-minute rule. Do you want to maybe just kind of walk us through that?
Yeah, I think that, everybody who's made a pitch or a presentation kind of understands the basic process of them, right? Like they got all this information in their head, and they're like, how do I get this information onto paper, and in what order, right? And so what you end up doing is you sort of end up typing sections and pieces and ideas. And so what I've really learned through the years is that the Post-it note is a great device, right? Like, you have one, you write down a thought on it, you can put it in place, right? And that's what I do a lot of times. So what I'll do is I'll just write single words, small phrases that come to mind, and I'll write all those Post-it notes and I'll get them on a board. And then I start organizing them in the WAC method of where they belong. Like, is this about what my company is or does, or is it about why it's good, right? Or is it about why I'm the right guy to do it? Or is it about my history? Or is it about how the process works, and I'll start to organize them in that sense. And once you have those post-it notes in sort of line, now you see the ones and the words and the phrases that actually make a difference. Sure. And you'll see that those are the ones that always rise to the top. And then you can do what I call the statement of value, which is you take that post-it note, which is one word, and turn it into one sentence.
Yep.
And make it clean every one sentence. And you'll find that you'll grow that naturally. And that's what happened to me on when I was doing Extreme Makeover. We had so much trouble trying to come up with the pitch, just because it was like overweight contestants that were too big for The Biggest Loser, and we needed to follow them for an entire year for one episode. And no one had ever done anything like that. And I just could not get the pitch straight. It was so convoluted, and I was so excited, and I was so nervous about trying to explain that we do it for a year, and it's all going to be one episode, and how we're going to produce it. And there was just so many moving parts that every time we'd leave the development office and go pitch somebody internally, usually I would share my pitches with my internal team and find out if there's any holes in them. And it was like one of those pitches that I could never get done properly. Every time I'd go pitch the accounting department, or, the finance guys, or my production team, they'd be like, what? Why do you do that? How does that work? And I was just like, and so after a while you realize, like, maybe they're not the dumb ones. Like, here's my pitch. And I had all of these things written on these Post-it notes across my development office. And for whatever reason, I just started to see these one lines and these one phrases. And I was like, I think that's it. I think that's all I need. And I effectively took like 6 Post-it notes and drove to ABC and pitched the entire series in a minute and 90 seconds, basically. And I just kind of got out of the room, and I just remember saying, like, to John Sadeh, who was running ABC, and I just said, you might not even have your job by the time this show goes on the air, because it's going to take that long to produce. But you will be able to walk into your boss's office and say, I found something that no one has ever seen before. And I just was like, this is what the show is. It's Contestants Too Big for The Biggest Loser. We follow them for an entire year. We have a trainer inside their house every minute of every day so they don't cheat. And we condense the entire year of production into one episode. So they start the episode fat, and by the end of the episode, they're thin. It's the biggest transformation, weight loss in television history, and it happens every single episode.
So great.
And we're a team who understands weight loss. We've designed a production schedule that allows us to do that at the same cost as it would a traditional television show. You might not even be able to get the show on the air by the time, and you might not have your job by then. But no one will have ever seen anything like this before, and you'll be able to walk into your boss's office and put this tape on the desk and watch this. And that was it.
Love it.
And it's like, I didn't have to do much else. And so, so we got a lot of episodes of that. I did very well with that. So it was just, I was like, combined with some of the other sort of simplicity that I had been doing just out of forced habit, sure. It was like, well, this is it. This is how I'm doing it.
Love it. Another great story in the book, I think you call it repairing the plumber's pitch. But you were on a bus ride. I think it was the dad of one of your kids. Your kids were friends, and so anyway, I think you were going out to go skiing, but the two of you, there you are on the bus for 3-4 hours. Anyway, I love that part. I don't know if you want to tell a little bit of that story, because it really takes it out of the Hollywood realm and brings it very much into sort of regular business.
So, you're going to love this. So, I didn't know him. I asked him what he did. It was that simple of a question. So what do you do? And he's like, he didn't want to say he was a plumber because he didn't like the connotation of that. And they didn't just do plumbing, or they didn't do much other plumbing. They only did repiping of houses, which means if you have crappy pipes or they leak, we're going to put all new pipes in. But it wasn't putting in new pipes. It was old pipes. Or it wasn't old pipes stay in the walls, but their new pipes go in. And it was just like, it was hours of like, I don't even know, like, what did I just hear? So we were up there in this lodge, helicopter skiing, and so I went through it, and I just remember, like, when I figured out what he did and how he did it, and I would call people over from the other in the other groups and be like, "Hey, Bob, you're not gonna believe what Jeff does. he has a company called Repipe Specialist. And you know, when you have a leaking pipe in your house, he can repipe your entire home using, and I go through the pitch, right? I would just go through the very basic basis, right? They repipe your entire homes. Takes one day. They actually leave your old pipes in place. They use this new flexible PEX pipe, and they only cut micro holes in your drywall and feed it in. The result is they can repipe your home, an entire home, in one day. You don't even have to move out. What used to be a major construction is now just a minor reservation or a renovation. And people were like, "Oh my God, but how do you get that?" And they would like ask so many questions. And Jeff's like, "What the hell? I've never seen this before," right? And it was fascinating, not only how great his business model was, but how like the change in people when they heard it. And they're like, "What? You can do this in one day?" It's like, "Yeah, we can repipe your entire house in one day." And so I started working with Jeff directly to redo all his marketing and all his piece. Just coincidentally, Jeff and I became, he's my best friend now. And we ended up taking his company and expanding it to multiple other markets. And then we decided to put it for sale, and I helped him prep it for sale. And he sold his company last year for almost $200 million.
Holy smokes. That's the power of the 3-minute rule.
Yeah. Yeah. And we went through the same exercise to prep it for sale, to prep him for a meeting with the PE firms, the whole thing. And all that marketing and all the simplicity and all the change that we had done to explain, and it just launched huge, massive divisions of the business. So instead of just doing houses, they started doing huge multifamily projects, and under the same guise that it's like, if you hire a contractor or a plumber, they're going to turn this 200 unit building into a major construction zone. But we do each individual unit as if it's an individual home. Yeah. So we'll take what would normally be a construction zone and turning into 200 minor renovations. And just the simplicity of like, oh, wow. And by the way, we did 50,000 home repipes last year. So we kind of know what we're doing, right? And you're like, and so the revenue, the explosion that happened in his business was fun to watch. And yeah, then he sold.
Great story. Let's go through a couple of the points you make in the book. In sort of Hollywood, there's this something called the all is lost moment, where things are just the lowest of the possible lowest point in the movie or the TV show. And you talk about applying this theory sometimes when we're pitching something. Our tendency is, if there's something we're a little worried about or isn't, we're afraid they're going to ask us about this, we try to just pretend that it's not part of the pitch. And that's the last thing I'd talk about. You have a really interesting theory, I thought, on a very different theory, a very different approach to how to do that.
Yeah, I'm literally in the middle of doing 3-minute rule for lawyers as an entire course thing that I'm working with the legal community on. And that's my biggest thing for them is like, what do you hope the jury doesn't find out about your case? Or when I'm with a company, I just say, what do you hope your investors don't find out? Or what do you hope your customer doesn't find out? And it takes them a while because they don't even want to tell me. I'm like, you're paying me. Like, I basically work for you and you don't want to tell me what this is and you're sugarcoating it. Like, what the hell's wrong with you, And the reason that people do is they think that it will detract, or that people they'll get sort of dissuaded just because it's slightly negative, or they think they'll put so much weight on that negative piece of it, right? And the truth is like, people, if they want it, they will look past the negative. They will rationalize why they want it. But if you hide it, they will assume it's bigger than it really is.
Sure.
And like I say in the book, you only got 3 options, right? Either, nobody brings it up, right? Nobody brings up this negative thing in the pitch, or the thing that's kind of obvious. And that's fine. It makes for a good meeting, but somebody's going to bring it up, or your client's going to figure it out, or they thought it the entire time and never mentioned it. And then they're on their own piecing together how serious this sort of like issue is. Number 2 is your client brings it up and says, well, what about this? What about the rising tax rate? Or what about the shrinking price of oil? Or what about if you aren't working there anymore? How do I protect my assets, right? And it's like, now you've got the client who's been thinking about this and a long enough time to formulate this as a thought while you're pitching stuff. So he didn't hear any of the other stuff that you had. And now it's like you're trying to defend his question. Or you bring it up. and you bring it to the forefront and you watch your client or your potential solve the problem with you. And it happens every single time without fail. It's a huge piece of power. And in the book, I tell a story when I was with John Bon Jovi, and we're pitching a show about him. What would he do if he wasn't a rock star? And the idea is like, oh, John, you'd have been a landscaper because of this, and this. That's what our algorithms tell us. So for the next week, you're going to live as a landscaper, and you're going to tell us what it's like compared to being a rock star. Ha ha ha! Great TV. He signs on. We're ready. We're getting ready to pitch. When you have a celebrity come, you hit every single major network on the same day, so they don't have to travel as much. So he wants to have breakfast with me. The greatest moment. I'm having breakfast alone with John Bon Jovi. One of the greatest things still to this day. One of the coolest things in my life. Except for within about 10 seconds of the meeting, he's like, I don't think I can do this show. It was literally his first words out. I was like, what? And he's like, listen, you guys have been doing this thing about me being a landscaper. I would never be a goddamn landscaper. I don't like being outside. I don't want to get my hands dirty. This is all phony. And I've talked to my other rock star friends that we want for the show, and they're sort of saying the same thing. They're like, no, I would never have done anything but music. I would have died before I did anything but music. And I was like, oh shit. And the only reason I didn't panic further is I didn't really have a chance because I was supposed to be meeting with NBC at 10 a.m. So it's I don't have to make a real excuse. I don't have to make it's not about the truth. It's about how do I get John in this meeting? So I basically just said, oh, don't worry about it. That's totally normal. We'll figure that out. You don't have to be a landscaper. It's not a big deal. Don't just, And he's like, what? I was like, nah, that's not how we're going to develop this further. La, 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 la. Anyway, so he agreed to go to the meeting, and I was like, oh my God. Now my fear is, oh God, John's going to say that to my buyer, right?
Sure.
He's going to just blast it out there out of the thing. But just remember, I don't really want to be a landscaper, and I don't want to do anything. I don't want to make fun of people that have blue collar jobs. I'm not interested in this. That's a dead. So in the pitch, in the actual core of the pitch, because the way a pitch goes in Hollywood is basically a little small talk when you sit down, and then it's okay, tell us about the show, and then you're here's the show, here's blah, blah, blah. And so before anybody else could talk or make any comments or ruin anything, I literally said, so here's the problem. John actually would never have done anything but music. He has no affinity for landscaping. It makes sense on paper, but it doesn't make sense in reality. And in fact, he's talked to a bunch of the other rock star sort of names that we want, Lenny Kravitz, Bruce Springsteen, and these guys who said they want to do the show, but they had similar objections, is that they wouldn't have been tile layers. They wouldn't have been owning a restaurant because they just wanted music. And they're really concerned about making fun of those people. So we have to solve that problem of how to, get John to try things, but not put him in that position. And the network instantly was like, well, but I think there could be some real moments in this. And I remember Andrea said, well, John, don't you feel like you may have missed out on some, family, regular 9 to 5, there's some benefits to that, but the crazy lifestyle. He's yeah, of course. And I think about that all the time. Things I miss with my kids and whatever that. And it's well, we could really focus on that stuff as opposed to trying to get you to do these things. And by the end of that meeting, the network is solving that problem. And John's oh yeah, working in landscape, that would be kind of fun. It'd be funny. We could do that one, right? So when you own that negative, and I, like I said, I was just doing this with a client yesterday with, and the biggest fear is you're going to become attached to the trainees that you're working with. And how are they going to, what if you expand? What if you get bigger? You're not going to be the guy there in person anymore. And it's he didn't not want to talk about that. Right. And I was but everybody's going to figure that out. It's the entire business is based on you. So we got to get a hold of that ahead of time. And if you don't, it's just going to derail anyways. You're never going to put things past somebody where they don't think of that. Right.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. And to the extent you've got, or I've got a solution to the issue, you sort of bring it up and then you're able to address it in the meeting versus, as you said, during, if they ask, if that's the first question out of their mouth, that's the thing they've been thinking about the entire time you're pitching. I mean, so.
Yep. And I've had it where I didn't have a solution.
Yeah.
I genuinely didn't know. I remember the show really well. It was basically Amazing Race for the smartest people in the world. And we partnered with McGee, who's a big Hollywood producer, big, huge explosions, massive dude, like a Michael Bay type. And the idea was we take MIT graduates and Boeing engineers and the smartest people in teams, and they do Amazing Race-esque
Yeah.
challenges. But instead of like trying to assemble IKEA furniture to get to the next level, you're like trying to cross a 400-foot gully, with only a paper clip. Like huge, massive challenges, right? And so we had the greatest tape and the greatest details, but I knew because I could not come up with a lot of challenges. Like my team couldn't come up with good ones. I couldn't come up with very many good ones. And it was all like, we'll figure it out later. And I was like, God damn it. What if the network asked me, what are the challenges? What kind of challenges are you thinking? It's like, I really don't have good ones. So I'd pitch the show. And before I'd even start with the other pieces of anything, I'd just say, I have a big problem though. My team has not been able to come with big challenges. The size and the scope that we're looking for, I don't have a professional challenge designer on my team. And I was going to get one, but like it costs, they're not cheap. And I just don't know where we're going with this. And we want two people with so I was like, if you love the idea, just know I'm not your challenge guy. We got to find someone who really designed these things big. And the same thing, the network's like, well, obviously I'm not looking you to design challenges. Of course we'll get somebody. Don't worry about that. And you know what I mean? When you hear the show, you don't go like, oh, that's a great show, but I don't know the challenges, so I don't think it's going to work. Your brain doesn't go there. But I tell you with 100% certainty, if the buyer at Fox had said to me, this is really cool, like give me some examples of some of the challenges you might do, I'd have been like, I'd like one. Well, we freeze a car for the next journey that you need, and we freeze it in a giant block of ice, and you have to thaw it out and get it to start. And it's like, oh, great challenge. And it's like, I got nothing else.
Yeah.
I got nothing else, And so it was really great because then they were like kind of thinking, oh, but we'll do big things. We'll do this. We'll do over here. And, that helps.
Exactly.
So, and it conveys confidence.
Absolutely. Another element of the book I thought was really, really cool was your approach around endings, right? You always hear, oh, you got to end on, the ending's got to be the best, all this, all that. Tell us a little bit about that. How do you typically end the 3-minute pitch or your 3-minute?
So unfortunately, like the world has now like commoditized pitching and presenting and raising money, Shark Tank, stuff like that. So if you watch Shark Tank, that feeling you get when someone at the end be like, so Shark, who wants to swim in the deep end with me? Right. And you're like, oh, right. Yeah, this is rehearsed. I forgot about that. Right. And so for me, it's like, I don't say anything. I don't create an ending. I don't wrap it up. I don't do a big summary. I don't do any of that. I just go like, okay, that's it. Do you got questions? And that's it. I just be like, that's my pitch. And it forces the other team to speak first, be like, wow, great pitch. Or, oh, I love the way you did this. Or, and they don't feel like you wrap them up in a little bow to try to like entice them to something. It's just sort of like it reinforces like, yeah, I'm here to tell you what this is and how it works. I'll tell you why I think this is a good idea and then how we can work together.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
If that doesn't, if after that, if you don't have questions or you don't want to talk further, like I got other meetings to go to.
Yeah.
And it was funny because like the guy who really helped develop this by accident because he was so difficult was a guy named Gen Maynard at CBS. And I don't know, man, he was like a classically trained poker face. He would never give you anything in the room. Didn't matter what you pitched, what you had, how good it was. He'd just be like, stone face. And you knew the pitch was over if he goes, okay, got it, thanks, we'll let you know. Like, if he did that, that means you're done. He doesn't have questions, it's over. And sometimes he would go like, it's great, how do you do this? What about this? And then you're like, oh, I got him. Because he's asking questions, right?
Sure.
And so it's like that. If you end your pitch and the people on the other side would be like, yep, got it, we'll let you know, you're dead. Like, it's nothing you can say to wrap it up is going to help. Whatever you said in the first 3 minutes didn't work, right? Or it wasn't the right audience or whatever. And so I've just found it's just so much more effective and clean and moves you out of the information stage into the engagement stage, which is, I told you what this is and how this works. I told you why I think it's a good idea and how we work together. what questions do you have? And when I'm training lawyers on opening and closing statements, I use that literally the exact phrase. I get them to do their opening statements, this case summary of what they're doing within 3 minutes. And then they will literally say to the jury, now, I know you have questions, which obviously you can't ask me because this is my statement. So you're probably wondering blank. And you also might be asking, why did my client do blank, 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 right? And so it's like, you're literally answering and asking the questions. You are taking the audience into your engagement phase, whether they like it or not. And I developed that technique for keynote presentations. And, if you have 20 minutes to give a presentation, you don't want to do it in 3 minutes and then walk off the stage. But your first 3 minutes has to contain everything. And now you're, it's hypothetically sort of saying before you move on, but like, I'm going to answer some of the questions that I'm sure you have, right? On stage, you sort of like have it made. Okay, so let's talk about phase 1, right? And then you go through what they would normally have questions with. And if it's an in-person meeting, that's exactly how it would go.
Sure. You've also got some definite thoughts on PowerPoint and presentation slides, that type of thing. I think you call it the 10 Commandments of PowerPoint. PowerPoint less, I think was the name of the chapter, something like that. Just high level, give us what role do our slides, quote unquote, play? Obviously, many times people, when they're doing their presentation, they spend, hours or days, weeks on the slides. What's your philosophy on that, Brant?
I use PowerPoint for presentations and for pitches in general, that where I have a narrative story to give and there's details, but it's not something that my PowerPoint, your PowerPoint should never be something you would hand out to somebody.
Yeah.
Because if it is, you've got too much information on it, right? You can't give them something they read ahead of time. PowerPoint needs to be an augment to what you do. The real value of PowerPoint is after you pitch them and they're interested and you've told them everything, give them the material so they can like reinforce in their mind, hand it to somebody else. But you can't fill it
after the pitch. If you hand out that material before you start pitching, what are they going to do while you're pitching?
That's right. I have done that where I hand stuff out ahead of time and there's no words on it. It's just a picture.
Yeah.
And so then they're like, they saw it and now they're like, what's this about?
Yeah.
I'm not going to send you what I'm going to say about it. Like, that's insane. So, so PowerPoint is dangerous. It's embarrassing. It will categorize you as, someone who's unprofessional, like so fast.
All the animation.
I see. And I ask clients, I was like, do you think anybody reads this? No. Well, then why are you putting it on here? Oh, because I have to. It's like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
So it's bullet points for the most part.
So I'll put you on the spot here for a moment. Let's say you're raising money. It could be for a university. It could be for a museum. Perhaps it's for a hospital. And again, I'm not going to ask you to go through the whole pitch. Obviously, we need a lot more details. But just let's kind of, because we are talking with 2 and 4 fundraisers here, do you see a good application of the 3-minute rule for fundraising? And if so, why? Or how might you go about it?
I would say more so than a lot of industries, because fundraising in the traditional, let's call it quote unquote nonprofit type area, whether it's literally nonprofit or not, it doesn't matter. But like in that area where it's more like on the benevolent side of things, what people end up doing is they end up going into the theoretical elements of saving the world and the good and all of these things. And they don't talk at all about any of the actual details. Here's what I'd use the money for. Here's why it's going to, here are the actual facts, right? And even if you're getting a grant or you're having people give away the bequeathing of their, whatever it is, they still have to understand the same basic premises. What do you do? How do you do it? Why have you chosen that to do? And what's the next use of this? So I would say in that sense, you really have to focus on what is it that I do, right? Sure. And my new client is in that space where he's in the middle of this fundraising space. And it's what he does is he provides in-person social connectivity for developmentally challenged adults. So
Yeah.
people with autism and whatnot, they don't have friends, they don't have things to do. So he, as a former professional athlete, effectively one of the cool kids, goes and spends time with these sort of developmentally channeled adults and becomes their sort of friend in guides them through various things in life, gives them some fun things to do, right? And it is a great cause and it does amazing things. And his pitch becomes more the way I structured it, which is just like, here's exactly what I do. Like, here's the people I do it for, and here's why I do it, and here's what I do that's different than everybody else. And it's like, I only do men. This is a men's group effectively, because these young developmentally challenged men do not have role models to look up to. Everybody in the therapeutic community is a woman and has different ideas and a softness to them. And I am male masculine energy, and I bring that in. It's like, okay. And instead of that pitch being all grand and the beautiful things it leads to, these emotional moments that these kids and adults have, it's like, no, here's exactly what I do.
Yeah.
And here's why I do it. And then when he talks about the effect of it and the impact it has on these, you got to remember, like, after 18 years old, they're not in school. They don't have special programs anymore. It's like they're on their own, can't work, can't do things socially. It's like, what do they do all day? Like, it's not even learning skills or rehabbing. It's like, what do you do all day? And it's like, my team comes and gives these people things to do and experiences. And you're like, oh my God. So that the benefit of what you provide in this fundraising space, nobody should be questioning that or not clear on that, right? You shouldn't need to tell them what the result is and what the benefits are. You should be able to explain what you do, how you do it, why you do it and why it's needed, and the benefits and the results and what it means to people in the community and the environment and all this stuff. If it's not clear by then, you have screwed this whole thing out. And that, I think, from, and I know that from my sort of wealthy friends, it's like they get asked for stuff every day. Just think about if you were a organization that was giving away money. How many people you think ask you for money every single day? So it's like, is your pitch that you're doing really good? You're going to change somebody. You're going to save the world. Like, yeah, I just read 50,000 proposals that said the exact same thing. So clean structure, concise to the point, very focused on what you do and how you do it. Let the rest and the benefits and the higher sort of virtue of it, let that sit on its own. You don't need to sell that.
Here. Awesome, Brant. Well, you, what a great, so much great advice, so many things to think about, and some great ways, obviously, to apply this to fundraising. So, huge thank you to you for taking a little bit of time today, and look forward to talking to you soon. Thank you very much.
Anytime, man. Anytime.
Awesome.